Welcome back to the Polynize podcast. Today, the first of our player deep dives with Quinn Papworth, an amazingly talented university student, phenomenal Polynizer. We'll find out today what makes him tick and why he thinks university is a waste of time. Let's jump in. All right. Welcome back to the Polynize podcast. And today, coming to you live from Upside here in Cremorne, the digital and Web3 centre of Australia. Sharaf, how you doing?
Really doing good, Mars. How are you today?
Doing good.
Yeah.
Super pumped. Today we have special guest, Quinn Papworth,
Super happy to be here, guys.
Polynize Live Champion. How you doing?
Great. Just ecstatic to be here.
Awesome. Good to have you. We're just going to let the conversation flow today. See, we've already been having some great conversations this morning over coffee. So
Yeah.
that's all we're going to do is going to continue that conversation.
Yeah. And we were talking a little bit about you, Quinn, and your backstory. Actually, super interesting. You're an RMIT student right now. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing, and then tell us about what led you to this point.
Yeah. So I'm a second-year student at RMIT, doing a Bachelor of Business, majoring in finance and blockchain-enabled business. Just finishing up my finance major and yet to get into the blockchain. But I made a big shift. I was previously studying physiotherapy at La Trobe, and over COVID found that I wasn't really enjoying the study and made a huge shift and kind of got into finance and investing in that world on my own accord, all through blockchain and crypto. So.
Yeah, amazing. And that takes a little bit of courage, I guess, to make that big switch.
Yeah, it was definitely a decision. The safe choice was to finish my first degree, but figured I was young and I didn't want to waste time doing something I didn't enjoy, money as well, and so I had to make the shift. Really, once I was there, it was no decision.
Yeah,
amazing.
Physiotherapy is all about being physical, and if you're doing that online, that could be very difficult. Would have been quite dry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. That study was not for me online. I'm definitely glad to be back on campus.
Yeah.
But it's definitely the new norm though as well. So
Is that when you got into blockchain and crypto during COVID?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So just working a hospitality job and having a lot of time in between, and not loving my current studies. So I was just looking for new things and stumbled across it all.
How was COVID for people like you going through study, going through uni, young people? It was tough, obviously, but tell us a bit about how it felt. How did that sort of change things for you?
I think compared to high school students, I think that would have been the most rough moment. As a uni student, it was kind of unique because I had just gone into university, so it was all I had known in a sense. I think I maybe had 2 weeks on campus before COVID kind of shut everything down.
Oh, wow.
So it's all I really knew. So in that sense, it didn't feel too terrible, but definitely, like everyone went through, a bit isolating, but definitely being younger and having those digital contacts, whether it's through gaming or social media, it made it a bit more bearable.
Yeah, amazing. Because we're going to get into that in a second. Do you think that the COVID period played a part in your decision? You made a change?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Which is interesting to think about, whether it's per chance or not. But I think it just gave me a bit more time to think about my trajectory in life and evaluate what being a physio would mean for me, and whether that was a compromise or not, and whether it was something I actually really wanted to do.
Yeah, and so why were you in physio in the first place?
I think for me, it was just a little bit better than an office job. When I thought about it as a kid, I was like, when I was in high school, I was like, I don't want to be at an office job just rotting at a desk, hating my job. And I think that came from my family and seeing my dad work. He works in a corporate office, and he went to work every day, and he absolutely hated his job. He said that, but he went to work every day, to provide. So I think that's what it was. It's it's a little bit better than that. I get to be on my feet a bit, work with my hands. It's not quite as bad as that, but it was definitely just a more sensible choice. I think that I just I didn't really know what I wanted to do still.
Yeah, and going into physio, that let you understand more what you were getting into, is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Just it wasn't grabbing me at all, the study, and I think it should. So that was a bit of a sign, and just thinking about the reality more as well. Like, I just realized it wasn't for me. I want to be more on the forefront of creating exciting things that really, excite me.
Yeah, great. And I'm assuming that during that time you're studying something that you don't necessarily like, but then you're opened up to this global world of gaming and blockchain, and you're seeing all this amazing stuff happen. How is that? So I'm imagining that when we were teens, like I think I just got my Ericsson. Like when I was in like year 9, you could make a phone call, but there's no, the internet was super slow. The communities were very very sparse. Digital communities were very sparse back then. So what is it like growing up now and having that access to sort of everything globally? And how does that sort of affect your decision, or how did that affect your decision on what you want to study?
I think it's been amazing, first of all, but also at the same time very overwhelming. I think you'll hear that a lot. I actually do, I wouldn't say fear for the future, but it's definitely interesting to see where it's going to go because I just have no idea. But in terms of affecting my study, I'm not too sure how to articulate it. I think digital study is a good thing in general because it just onboards more people to education. But I haven't found it to be that impactful for myself. I've found definitely being in person, like more emphasis on soft skills and those social like situations is where I found value and real meaning from my education.
And also, I'm also interested in just going quickly back to your experience in physio and then moving forward. You have to sort of lock yourself into this degree in a sense. Like you have to choose quite early in life and make that decision. Do you see that as a bit of an experiment for you, having done it? Did you learn from that experiment?
I think I just learned what I don't like as much. And I think spending more time during COVID and finding things on my own accord, that's where I think you can experiment more rapidly and just spending time with yourself. I think with a course structure, it's still quite slow, but you do get the message eventually whether this is for you or not. But definitely it's more self-evaluation and finding time for yourself that I found to be a better place to experiment.
That experimentation is super slow. I mean, when we went through, we had to spend years finding, it took me 10 or 20 years to find my fit with what I want to do because of the speed of it. It was so slow.
Yeah.
Actually, want to talk a little bit about your gaming. Let's jump into that because I think that's really, really interesting to us. The fact that you're a gamer and those friends and communities you have through gaming. Just tell us a little bit about your life as a gamer.
Yeah, so I grew up playing games. Have an older brother, so he always had a console. Been playing probably really inappropriate games since I was in prep. I remember playing Call of Duty and all those things I probably shouldn't have been touching, but so it's the older brother influence there. But no, gaming's always been a pivotal part of my life. It's just like it's the sports when you're not playing sports. It's just I remember when I was in primary school, I was obsessed with it as well. When I graduated in year 6, one of the things you can write is, what do you want your future profession to be? And then it was professional gamer. It was like, the NBA of a lot of kids, seeing this really exciting new space pop up. There's like gaming houses and all these new structures. And it's just like, wow, this is really, really cool.
And you haven't given up on that dream, have you, Quinn?
I'd say I have. A bit more of a casual gamer, but I think I'm definitely a good gamer. I'm always, somewhere in the top 5% when I pick up a game or 1%, whatever it is. But yeah, it's more of a social thing now as life gets more hectic and I just don't have the time. And I think also in Australia, the rewards for putting in such time is not really there in esports yet. Our scene's still very small. And that's with a lot of things in Australia. But it's something I still love.
Yeah, well, you'll get your chance. You proved you're in the top 5% in Polynize, and you'll be able to play Polynize as the esports. What about your friends and gaming? Like you've built some communities and friendships there. You were telling me.
Yeah, absolutely. All my IRL friends, we game all the time. But then beyond that too, after years of gaming, you just get introduced to people, and you meet people I've met people from all over Australia. It's been great. Meeting people from Tasmania and up north as well. It's been awesome. And then also deriving value from those connections as well. when I need them. It's just, yeah.
Amazing.
And that's interesting because you said one of the first games you played was Call of Duty. Is that the earliest one you can remember?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Besides that, like the GameCube, I think it was before that. So
Yeah.
just playing games on that, yeah.
Yeah, so from an early age, that communal element to gaming was always there. You know, the games we played, Mario Brothers growing up, it was, you know, you were in the game, you played what you saw. There was no community element to it. So it's interesting that you've grown up at a time where community and gaming are kind of intertwined. Do you think that had an effect on how you experienced gaming, like being part of that community?
Absolutely. I probably don't want to say this, but like I'm chronically online, you know, it's just like been playing online games since probably like, I've been 6 years old. So it's just always been there. It's just been my experience with gaming. It's just online.
Yeah, we used to hack it though. See, games need three things. Great games have three things. They have autonomy, like you get to do what you want in the game. They have performance and moving up, leveling up, because you want to see you getting better. And the third thing is a social. Now, we didn't have social online, but we used to all gather around the video games and play competitively against each other, because competition's part of this, isn't it? We noticed you're a competitive guy, and that drove you to really do well when you played Polynize. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, absolutely. Whatever game I play, it has to be competitively. I can't touch something, and if there's a competitive aspect, I have to be there. Yeah.
Amazing.
You said in your interview post game that you weren't expecting to win, but you are competitive. But you walked into you said that you walked in and you saw a lot of people and you didn't expect to win. How does that competitive spirit sort of affect you even in your schooling life? Like you seem to be quite competitive. Do you want to do great at school? Is that something that you're pushing for?
Yeah, I think recently it's become more of a focus as I have found something I'm more passionate about. I think previously in my schooling life there hasn't been too much that's grabbed me, so it hasn't been like something that's immediately caught my attention. But now it's definitely something where I'm like, I can see the value, and yeah, it's something I want to be competitive in as well.
Awesome.
Let's stay in the game frame for a sec. Think of life for a second as a game. If you could choose your own adventure over the next little period, let's say 5-10 years, you know, tell us a little bit about how that might unfold if you could choose that adventure, the ideal situation.
Yeah, right. So finishing my study, obviously, doing really well there, and then I would love to move into the Web3 space. I really like creating white papers and startups and ideas. So just ideating, and wherever that leads me, I would love to be just building something, I think. Like I wouldn't mind working at a bigger firm just because I'm young and getting experience from people that are wise in whether that's in finance or blockchain. But ultimately, I do want to be building because that's just what excites me, and I think there's just more value to be derived that way.
Love it. So you can see yourself as a founder one day?
Yeah, hopefully. I would
Amazing.
love that, but
Yeah.
you know, obviously, it's nothing's certain. I'm very young, so.
Well, it's the beginning of a journey. And when I went through university, we never even thought that way. So what excites us here at Polynize is hearing these stories of people, even at a very young age, already envisaging themselves as startup founders. I love that,
right.
you know.
Yeah.
I just think that's so great.
Yeah, and it's also, you know, if you have an idea and you start working on it, you're a founder. There's no barriers to that in terms of that. But it's the same thing about finding community and finding a space where you can thrive with those skills. And in that sense, is there a community of like-minded people at your university that want to be founders, that want to start their own thing? Is that a thing for RMIT?
I think it's growing at RMIT, and I think you can see it everywhere with like just emerging tech having their own courses, and also just entrepreneurship being huge as well, and things popping up like Founder Hubs and the Blockchain Innovation Hub at RMIT. So that's really great to see. But I haven't delved too much into that yet myself. So I think that's what the next 2 years for me is at uni. It's really getting deep into that and finding value from a network and providing value to people. But I see it growing like every day, I think.
Yeah, that like-minded network is that's what we're all about. You know, we can see it already as well. Like we were talking about Ariel, for example, from the game. There's a like-minded connection. We'll be having Ariel in maybe in the next couple of weeks to have a similar discussion with him and his story. He also, I think, has that startup mentality, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to throw some bombs now and just move into something. Just provoke a little bit because I want to contrast everything you've been talking about, the digital life, the gaming, the networks, and the aspirations to be a founder. I'm going to contrast that with the classroom experience or the educational experience. And to give you a little provocation there, if you do the sums, you're spending as a student around $1 a minute on university lectures.
Yep.
How does that lecture experience feel for you? And contrast it or compare it at least with what we've been talking about.
I think when I'm doing subjects I'm more passionate about, it feels okay. But a lot of lectures still struggle to grab me. I think it's just traditional education. Many times I'll go into a classroom and it will be just sitting there for 2 hours while like being talked to, not really being engaged. So that does feel bad. But I do see a slow shift at RMIT. I think they're more on the forefront a bit of becoming more engaging in their classrooms. But it's definitely sometimes a struggle, and I will fall asleep in classes, and it's just it struggles to engage sometimes.
We've got some amazing stats around that, in terms of engagement in class. In America, for example, one study showed huge percentages of students not even turning up, or even if they turn up, they're actually playing games in class. Do you see that in classrooms? Do you see other people not turning up? Do you see a lack of engagement in the other people around you?
Yeah, I think especially since COVID, it's a growing thing that people don't attend classes, and just because all the content's online anyway. So if you really want to learn, you can go do that. But it's basically classes that have mandatory attendance. That's where you see attendance. And it's also bizarre, not seeing people get involved in classes as much. I've even recently had a class where in-class discussion is marked as part of your final grade, and people still won't talk, and it baffles me that people will come in and be silent every week when it's something that's graded. It's just, I don't know if it's from growing up being online all the time, but it seems those soft skills aren't there a bit.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, and can we dive into that a little bit? Because I'm interested in why you think that is. Do you think they're disengaged, that they don't want to be there, they're not interested in that particular lecture, or they're not interested in the whole course? Like, how do you see it? Like, are they just not engaging, like totally switched off, or are they listening?
Is it to do with the lecturer? These are all...
Yeah, I think it's just like not willing to be wrong and to experiment and to try. I think a lot of people... just don't want to talk and have a fear of being wrong. I don't know where that's really come from recently, but I think that's a really growing factor. I think you've seen it probably too on Zoom calls as well. It happens even more for some reason because people, they're behind a screen and they can not be accountable as much. And you think that wouldn't transfer over to in the classroom in real life, but it definitely has. So sometimes I'll find myself as well in a class, not wanting to always speak, but I'm just like, I want to speed this class up a bit. I want to get through it. I want to give an answer to the teacher where they're asking and nobody wants to answer. So,
yeah, let's talk about speed in a sec. I just want to throw a stat out there, like disengagement, as you point out. It's not just at this university level. It's epidemic in the workplace. Yeah. Recent study showed it's costing the world 11% of the GDP in disengagement. So we're talking about like lost productivity, people just not engaging, So we're talking about a very widespread thing. It's a pandemic, actually. Let's talk about speed for a second. This is something we touched on before in informal conversation. I know that I've been watching my sons. They're younger, but they learn at a rapid pace online. And in fact, I presented about the principles behind accelerated learning. They use videos. My teenage son taught himself quantum physics in a couple of days, for example. You just mentioned then about speed of lectures and wanting to learn faster. Do you feel that? Do you feel they're too slow?
Yeah, absolutely. The biggest thing for me is whenever I put on an online lecture, it's always on 2 times speed or 1.5, something it's just faster. I don't know why that is, but yeah, I think we're pretty good at learning quickly the new age. So
yeah, you are, because in games you learn fast, right?
Yep. I think not having someone like guide you through it, not like playing the experience, it just makes it easier in a sense to like, I think we just consume information much more quickly nowadays. And I think that's everywhere from like, all these short form videos where you can take in information really quickly. I think being able to soak up information it's a much more rapid process nowadays. And I don't think traditional education has factored that in at all. But I also get why, because you have to also account for everyone. But it does feel bad sometimes when it feels really slow.
Feels slow.
Yeah. The lecturers have to compete against influencers now. They're going to be like, here's my top 3 tips of how to...
Well, it's true because, the experience is very different to, this is slow and this is fast. So the comparison point is there, right? And that's a really interesting point. We use the word exponential that's sometimes used to really talk about, being able to go very fast and quickly. So that's something that we're thinking a lot about and we've been working on our platform. I wanted to ask you a little bit about skills. What are one of the things we talk about is future skills being very different. For example, there was a study coming out saying that the top 7 skills now, study from IBM, I think it was, saying the top 7 skills that are wanted in the workplace are actually all things like leadership, innovation, teamwork, communication skills, etc. All of the so-called soft skills. Yep. That's what the employers are telling us. Tell us about your experience in uni and how you think about skills.
I do think the soft skills are probably the most relevant to me. I think with a more rapid rate of learning with like AI, for example, all these hard skills that might be traditionally hard to get around, they're becoming easier to learn. Like studying corporate finance, for example, you can get an AI code interpreter to look at cash flows and explain it to you, and all these things. It just becomes easier. So I think value on the soft skills is increasing for me because it's what I'm missing and what I want to develop most. I think also, circling back a bit before too, I think it's just in higher demand too, because I don't know if it's whether it's from people being online and growing up online and they're missing some of those skills, but it just seems to be something that's missing and the demand is therefore high.
You brought up AI. I just wanted to ask about that. Let's talk about that class for a second. Corporate finance is the class you're talking about, and there's a specific thing there about analysing data, cash flows, which an AI can do. Yep. Do you get that experience in class? Do you talk about how you're going to use AI?
We don't, but it's been interesting seeing the universities shift around their attitude towards AI. So I started using like OpenAI, like basically when it came out for public. And so I've been using it for the last about year and a half. And first it was, the university knew nothing about it, so you could use it however you wanted. Then I found in my last semester, every subject was, you can't use AI assistants for this, which was interesting to me because I don't think that makes sense. If you give AI unique context, it's going to give unique answers. So you can just, if you really want to get around it, you're going to get around it very, very easily. It's not much of a challenge. And now I've found that all my subjects have got rid of that as well. So I think they've started to embrace it a bit more, but they haven't really openly talked about its use or had classes about how to use AI and how to help it, make it assist you, be assistive in your learning.
And how much are students using it in their day-to-day?
I think it's huge. I think all testing for me at university is online. So, why would you not use AI?
Everyone's using AI, you reckon?
Yeah. If you're in a test and you don't know an answer, what are you going to do? You have this AI there. People won't want to admit that, but a lot of people are doing that.
Yeah.
And if it's not something that's specifically, banned, then why would you not as well in that sense?
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah.
It's a tool. I mean, we had calculators in our maths.
That's how I think about it now. Exactly. It's like a financial calculator, but you can just give it more context.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it can just analyze these real world scenarios. It's no longer just looking at financial instruments or whatever. You can give it these real options and these real cash flows, and you can still do things with it.
And how do you think that's affected your learning?
I think it's been assistive, if anything, because it allows me to pick up the pace and jump to conclusions myself a bit more. And I also love playing around with the beta features and such on OpenAI, and using custom instructions and such, and you can use it in a way that you can really go deep into the answers. So, I don't think giving answers, for example, for a test has ever hurt anyone, and this AI just allows you to go back and actually really, it's like having somebody grading your work all the time. And you can just work backwards. You can reverse engineer it to learn really well.
Yeah, that's exactly the exponential learning that we're putting into place. So you learn faster with AI, and the research we're doing is showing that. Yeah. So great to hear you already doing that off your own bat. I think it's, by the way, you're going to be using it in your future career. Yeah. You know that, don't you?
Yeah.
And so how does it feel? I don't want to lead you too much into this question, but you're learning skills right now, and you're going to be going into a workplace that's going to be very different. Do you have this consciousness? Talk to us about that.
Yeah, a little bit is fear, obviously, because it's kind of a weird predicament to be in, that you're studying and training to go into a field and you have no idea what it's going to look like. So it's a little scary, but other than that, I just see it making things quicker and a lot of things just becoming automated and the values shifting is the biggest thing. And, just trying to position myself for that, being in a space where I'm passionate about things, I think that's going to add the most edge because if it's less replaceable, I think. And just being in high growth industries where you can still provide more value than AI can.
Yeah, I'd like to ask you about specifically that move into the job market now for a second. It's in the future for you, or you're going through this process of you'll be transitioning, I guess, into work. Just tell us a little bit about what is, what are the pathways that are attractive to you? Is it internships that you look for? Do you like big brands? Do you want a full-time job? Do you want to try out a startup straight away? Tell us a little bit about that.
I think it's actually more the startup scene interests me the most, and being hands-on and failing because I think these big traditional companies, I think that's something maybe a year or two ago I valued working at somewhere like that because of their reputation and you can learn a lot from your peers. But I think now going forward, it's hard to see a lot of these companies being sustainable in how big their hiring is. So I definitely want to be on the ground and just be experimenting so I can find something that works for me more.
So if we gave you a choice, let's say mentorship and internship at a startup or high-paid internship at big tech brand, where would you?
The startup, 100%.
You'd go for that?
Yeah, it just seems like a better long-term investment and definitely much more exciting to be involved with. So.
And what are the pathways that are available for you now? Can you see those pathways from where you are, or is it something you have to create for yourself? Is the university providing that for you?
A little bit, but I think especially in the blockchain space, it's something I have to create more myself. So networking is a huge thing, obviously, and deriving value from that. But the uni does get involved a bit. They try and have job boards and push internships, and they have industry partners. So that's really exciting to see that they're doing that and helping us into the workforce. But it's not as relevant in the field that I want to go into. I think you just got to take the leap at some point.
Yeah. And the world changes very fast and the unis change slow.
Yeah.
And so the gap, they can't keep up. And that's true of every institution. And that's one of the reasons we love Startup Land, because we can move super fast. Do your friends talk about this? You guys talk about work and all these issues that we're talking about? What's the discussion with your peers?
My friends, outside of uni, are not too clued into this. So I feel like I'm more on the forefront of AI and blockchain and emerging technology. So I think if anything, it's interesting talking to them and getting perspective on, I guess, the lack of information and the ignorance around it all. But I find as much as ChatGPT gets use and blockchain has found its use cases and it's found a lot of users recently, you still feel like a minority when you're trying to maximize these things.
Yeah, does it feel a bit lonely sometimes? You'd like to meet more people like that who are at the cutting edge?
A little bit, definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, then you cut out for startup land. So that's what it feels like to be a founder.
Yeah, one of the things we've noticed as a pattern is when you bring groups of people through, there's about 15% who have a startup founder mentality, and that seems to be like a number, Does 100 people, 1,000 people, whatever it is. Yeah. We had that in our lives, and so it's important to find those people actually, because otherwise it can get super lonely.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
And in terms of connecting into internships, you actually, as the winner of the Startup Showdown, you got connected to a few industry experts. I can't remember who you were connected to, but have you taken those up? Did you have those conversations?
Yeah, so I talked to GC from Optio Capital.
Oh, awesome.
That was awesome, talking to him about his journey he started in traditional finance and then moving into Web3 and blockchain. So that was great, and I feel like I've definitely got some value there because like I said, I love writing white papers and such, and it's great to know that I have someone that I have a good relationship with in the industry that I can go, hey, I have this idea, where would you suggest going from here, or.
Yeah, shout out to GC, absolute legend.
Yeah,
cool
he
guy.
is. They couldn't have chosen a better mentor. And also, we chose him to come in as well for that particular game. We were sponsoring it. Mentorships have been a constant theme that when we speak to students and graduates, it's even surprised us a little bit how much people value those mentorships, something we didn't have enough of as well, again. Why do you think that is? Why do you guys really want that so much?
I think it's because, the amount of information out there is just overwhelming. Like I said earlier, growing up online is just, there's so much to process all the time. It's great to have somebody that can kind of just set you straight and show you the way in a sense that's real and not just floating around in your head. I think sometimes it's hard to set that yourself, and I think although it's not something people want to admit, a lot of the time they will pay more respect to another authoritative figure rather than themselves. So I think it's very easy to find a mentor and be like, you're kind of my boss in a sense. I listen to my boss. And, it still derives value for you, but it's a way that's easier rather than trying to listen to yourself and feeling maybe a bit unsure about what you're doing. And all that.
Yeah. I'm thinking of the word guide there almost, because we've got this very fast-changing world that you've got to navigate, that all of us need a bit of a guide. Yeah, probably more important now.
Yeah, informing you what not to focus on or what not to look at is just as important as knowing what to focus on. So that online world for you is quite distracting. How do you navigate that personally? Like, do you find intuition guides you, or do you find you've been early into the blockchain space yourself? We're talking about your NFTs, your early connections into altcoins and NFTs, which shows me that you like to be on the cutting edge of technology and you like to sort of look for that. What drives that? Is that do you look for things that are new? Is that a pattern for you? Do you like to explore those?
Yeah, I think it's
territories?
just general curiosity for myself. I always love picking up hobbies. Probably far too many, but I think with Web3 and blockchain, once I found it, I really adored the tech behind it, and just thinking of its use cases. I think everyone falls in love with it that way, because the use cases are just infinite, and it's just finding a way to make it a great user experience so that people start to get it. So in terms of Web3, that's what it was for me. But in terms of navigating the general online horizon, it's still pretty overwhelming and easy to get, I think, distracted. I think everyone finds that nowadays. It's easy to get distracted.
And what are your platforms of choice? Like, where do you hang out online?
Discord is probably a big one. And then just every social media, like every other student.
Yeah.
Just online everywhere, basically.
So across, list them for me, just out of a rough percentage, like Discord definitely most?
Yeah.
Whatever your second most?
Yeah, I'm always on Discord. I always have it online. So
yeah,
that's somewhere I always am. And
heaps of different communities. So you feel that feeds that kind of want to be in different communities and.
Yeah, I definitely like the community aspect of Discord, where you have this Discord as this community. It's been good, and even for blockchain, like the internship I'm at currently, that's where I found it through Discord. So, which is bizarre to think about that I found it through what is traditionally a gaming social media. So, yeah.
Yeah. And then obviously TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, all the rest of them.
Everything.
Yeah. Facebook, you're on Facebook much?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, still Facebook, still kicking.
That's good. That's good to know.
Yeah, it's kind of old school.
It's getting
Discord's great for communities, and we had a lot of that last year when we were firmly in Web3. So maybe it's not so bizarre, because one of the things that we explore at Polynize, and we believe, is that the future has a lot more of the gaming mentality in it, and it's not just a separate thing that you do to waste your time, the way that previous generations have thought about it. So, those communities and friendships you talk about in the gaming world are actually very fascinating for us and for our audience generally. And even some of those disengaged students you talked about, I would guess they probably go home and engage in their gaming.
Yeah,
with
absolutely.
a total energy, right?
Yeah.
So they're not disengaged over there, are they?
Yeah, not at all.
And would you say that's escapism, or does it feel like escapism to you? Because that's what a lot of the older generation look at it as, that they're trying to escape reality. But there's the community element. Keep it.
It's real in a sense, like friendships.
I think it can be escapism. Like with anything, it's just it's what you get out of it. And for me, it's become a social thing is the biggest thing. But that doesn't mean to say, because it is a way of escapism, there isn't still real world opportunities. It's just it's really what you want to get out of it, I think.
Yeah.
Let's
move into finishing up just with a little bit of discussion around the way we met you in the game experience that we, in Polynize. You were part of one of our alpha testing games, we would call it. It was called Startup Showdown, which brought you in to go through a 3-stage process, creating startup ideas, collecting a team, stress testing from real investors, and then you performed in the final round, which was that final pitch. And this was all done face-to-face in a game arena, but with the digital platform. So we've been using and viewing that footage a lot. So we really, it's top of mind for us how you performed there. But one of the things that struck me about that last image we have of you is the team behind you. You actually collected a team of, I think, maybe 8 other students. I don't think you knew most of them, right? And how did that feel? Tell us about that, the experience you had, and especially that team aspect.
So picking them up along the way, it was interesting, because as you kind of like go up the leaderboards, you get more people joining. But it still felt really great, and especially in that last round, I feel like my team saved me in a way, because it's like, I feel like I've given everything I can to this idea, and I could then turn to my team and they could give me a different point, a point of difference that really helped. So the team, like I think about that shot, like turning around and like celebrating with all my team, but they were definitely a big part of it. And it felt actually great having those breaks in between rounds. I think the biggest value wasn't just sitting there thinking myself about the idea, it was talking to my team and like basically brainstorming in real time.
And that sort of reminds me of one of the comments the industry expert said. I think it was Adam. He said he really enjoyed the way you brought people's ideas in and you sort of fielded those ideas. So that collaboration point was a big plus for you. Does it bring that up?
Yeah, definitely. I just like I said, I don't think I'm the smartest person in the room, so I think it's great to get everyone's perspectives. And when you get everyone's perspectives, you're going to build something greater together. So, yeah.
We've now got the framework to actually measure those skills we're talking about inside, say, collaboration, and then credential you for them. So you can walk out with an asset or a credential which you can share. I just want to ask you a few questions now about the value you would see in that. And these are just sort of quick questions. You don't have to overthink them. But if you were able to credential these kind of skills, then I'll give you 3 price points for what you might pay to be in a game like that: $5, $15, or $50. What would you pay?
The immediate answer would be 15 if I just think about it like that.
Okay. And would you share that credential around, say, collaboration skills? Bang, Quinn got that credential.
Yeah, I'd love to.
And how would you use that? Do you give me an idea?
LinkedIn, resume, I think, and then I think that's about it, the use cases there.
Have you been going through a hiring process? You mentioned an internship. Tell us about how you got that.
Yeah, so through Discord, it's at a startup in kind of merging traditional finance and blockchain. So I think it's just being in the RMIT blockchain club Discord. I think that's what it was. It was posted there. So just looking in the right space, I think.
And was it like a traditional thing with a resume or not?
Yeah. So I went through, got vetted and talked to the team and had some calls and then went from there.
Okay.
All online? Is that all?
Yeah, online, and then finally met the team in person and everything.
Okay, so the local team's actually
local. They're based in Melbourne, but definitely worked for probably a month without having met in person. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so when you think of the future of work, do you see it more and more being remote or digital, or do you feel like your opportunities are opened up globally, or you'd prefer to find something locally so you're more face-to-face?
I'd prefer to find something more locally, but I think it's going to become more online and remote, especially in Web3. It's decentralized. That's just the nature of it as well. But I definitely find the value in person, I think, and building a network, it just seems easier that way. Mm-hmm. And deriving the value from it, I think, is the easiest thing because that communication just is so much easier and you're working on things more concurrently.
Let's go on that word value again. Do you spend money on things that help you in getting connected in networks? Like, do you spend money on events, networking, meeting people?
Not yet, no.
No. So, but do you spend money on education apart from the university degree, which is obviously a huge cost? Do you spend money on online training, for example?
Yeah, for certain things, yeah.
Like Khan Academy or anything like that, or what?
For me, it's just like passion projects where it's like card games or things I like. It's just
okay, so more in the gaming side?
A little bit, yeah, I have historically.
Okay.
Which is interesting.
Do you spend money on games? Do you buy game assets?
A little bit. I try not to.
How much, just roughly? Just give me a ballpark.
Over the years in terms of in-game assets I've spent?
Yeah.
Probably 2,000-3,000. It's a decent amount.
Yeah. So
are there any of those on-chain or mainly Web2 game?
All Web2 stuff. I think the exception is Steam items where they have a marketplace. So they can still be sold for a real world currency. But other than that, most of it's lost value.
Yeah.
For sure.
And how do you feel about that now that you've got that knowledge of Web3 and that sort of online on-chain assets versus off-chain assets? Have you shifted your focus more on?
It feels a little bad. I definitely stuff that can be sold and is more liquid is definitely, it's just nicer in general. Yeah.
That's super interesting. How do you feel about the money you spent at the university? First of all, how much of that, are you going to pay off a debt? Was that paid by your family? And also, how do you feel about that investment that you've made and the possible returns?
Yeah, so it is being paid off for me. I'm very fortunate by my father. So that's a great stress off. But the investment, I think, is generally good, but it does feel a bit bad at times where you're in a class that's not engaging. It's wow, I'm paying a little bit to be here. It doesn't feel the best at this moment.
Do you think your degree will help you in the future you envisage?
Yeah, I do, but it's also interesting because the biggest thing about a course traditionally is teaching those hard skills. And I feel like now with the rate of learning increasing and becoming more exponential, like you said, they're actually becoming less valuable, those hard skills. So I think it's a gateway into the workforce still, but I think what's actually being taught is becoming less and less valuable as AI becomes more prevalent and learning becomes faster.
Yeah, we call that a shift from knowledge to that, skills in this new sense of skills, that knowledge, as you point out, is more and more available at our fingertips, and it's getting outdated more quickly. Even when I went through computer science, we learnt computer programming in a language called Pascal, which was invented in the 1960s or something. So we knew it wasn't going to be, and I've never used it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I can only imagine what it feels like now.
Yeah. I think the value I'm getting from uni helps me kind of know where to look, but it's not necessarily the learning that's giving me value. It's knowing where to look and finding kind of like that guide and that path forward.
Yeah, you said the word gateway, which is, I think, a nice way to put it.
And in terms of that money that your father's spending, do you feel like obliged now to do something with it because he's invested that in you? How does that make you feel?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Definitely felt a bit guilty coming across from my previous course. 2 years. It's just like, oh man, it sucks to. It's not pissing it away, but I learned something about myself. But it's definitely it could have not been spent. Put it that way. So yeah, it definitely does feel a little bit of an obligation, but if anything, I think that helps me, and I have a competitive nature, so it's nice to it's another push forward.
That experiment was expensive, right? To run a 2-year experiment, you should be able to do that really fast and really cheap. So you could run 100 of those experiments and then find out what you shouldn't have to spend 2 years on it. You know? So it is expensive, and as I keep saying, that especially for international students here and in places like UK, US. These are, big yearly costs in university.
Absurd.
Yeah. Do you have friends who are going to pay that off? Does that sense, it's bigger in the US, but that sense of debt, does it weigh on people?
Yeah, I think it does, especially for people doing longer courses or going and doing masters as well. Or while, it is hard to, if you want to sustain yourself, work full-time and study full-time. So it is definitely a bit of a burden, but I don't think it's too bad. Like you said, it's definitely worse for like international students and a lot of other countries as well. It's just absurd amounts of debt.
Yeah.
What is the ratio of local to international students, you think? Like in rough ballpark, how does it feel for you?
I'd say it's about 50-50 in most of my classes at RMIT.
Okay.
That's just a ballpark.
Do you see any difference in the way those two, like the local versus the international?
I think international students are generally higher performing. I think it might be out of that obligation we were just talking about with paying fees, because it's more expensive, first of all, and also they've made the time to come and study here. But I think there's also a bit of separation as well. But besides from that, it's one and the same in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I've worked with international students and run incubators, and I noticed those things. I noticed, first of all, there was a separation. Often there'd be cliques, and in some ways it's natural. They're all they're from the same country. They all hang out together, same language. But it makes sense. They're more motivated because they've had to invest and make this big change. So, but having said that, even there, I think we noticed a lot of the problems you talk about, disengagement and apathy and so on. Yeah. It's a big industry, isn't it? I think Australia, it's our second or maybe it's our biggest industry now, is education. And a big part of that come roaring back since COVID is international education. Huge amounts of money being spent there.
On top of the local debt, I think we looked at that stat. It was like an average of $23,000, $24,000, but there's like 2.6 million people with that debt. So it's a huge, huge industry.
Lots of money that's just being locked into an industry which hasn't really changed. I mean, you do mention the change happening, and we see individual people who talk about this change in education. But interestingly, for example, some universities opened up courses around entrepreneurship. Some of those courses are now shutting down again, and part of what we see is like entrepreneurship is doing, not just listening. So that may be part of it. Would you consider a course like that, a business degree in entrepreneurship?
Yeah, absolutely. I think in terms of universities, RMIT is not bad at it. I've had some classes where it's been a bit more of a focus, the entrepreneurship like mindset, where I had a class recently where we got to work with a partner and actually, deliver like KPIs for them and just deliverables, unique deliverables for their brand. So that was really great to work with them and actually get feedback. But yeah, entrepreneurship is definitely something that appeals to me, and I think it's a growing space. When I see in the Bachelor of Business, it comes out under a lot of things. I see a lot of people studying entrepreneurship now.
I think it's one of those same things. Like, you need the experience of being an entrepreneur, the experience of being the founder of a startup to actually get those battle scars to know what it feels like. Like you said, that failing and the experimentation. I don't tend to teach that at school. You don't get that. It's a cushioned environment. You need the scars. The scars are what make you learn.
And that's what our platform's doing, because the method is different. You can't learn by listening or absorbing knowledge. You have to learn by doing. Yep. But it's a little bit like training in martial arts. You spar against your partners and you get those little scars. So are you ready for the real battle?
Yeah.
But you can't read about sparring.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So in Polynize, as we launch what we call our battles, and having AI really accelerates this, because you're already using AI in that way. I think you said that AI is giving you the feedback that you need to accelerate. So if you could train against AI, then you actually learn faster. And that's what we're launching. So we're going to be, really looking forward to having people like you in playing, developing your skills, and I think you're going to excel. Get you in to play our peak esports events as well. Maybe that dream of being the professional gamer can come back.
Still alive.
Yeah, absolutely. You can use your mind,
Yeah.
which is your biggest asset.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Sounds awesome, yeah.
And I think one of the biggest things I've taken out of this conversation is that, like you said, that speed of learning. I think that's interesting. The fact that young people have a greater appetite to learn, and they can learn a lot quicker than most people think. So I think that's
a lot quicker. We're not talking a little bit quicker. We're talking 5 times quicker is what I'm measuring here. It's actually amazing.
It scares me. I see, even in gaming or whatever it is, I think you see like all these child prodigies more. And it's not even like it's normal now. Like the rate they're learning is just absurd. And just competing with like full grown adults, like whatever it is, they're just there. And they can be as young as, like 6, and they're just like competing at a world-class level. It's just insane.
Yeah, that's great, because they're not being treated like a child. They've got the same user experience as everyone else, and they can excel as fast as
they've got the tools. Right now there's an Indian kid, he's 18, who's almost won the world championship of chess and causing a huge sensation. The other day when we presented about this, we presented about accelerating 5x times faster learning. One of the guys in the audience put up their hand and said, are you guys creating a race of superhuman intelligences? And I kind of think, that's science fiction version is scary, but I think it's actually really exciting to see that potential come out in your generation. That's going to be amazing. I think I'm all for it.
Totally. Well, let's leave it there. Thanks, Quinn. Appreciate your time.
I appreciate it, guys. It's been a blast.
I hope you got something out of this as well. I guess I'll leave it with the ball in your court. Have you got any questions to us that you want to ask? Is there anything we've missed that you want to add to the conversation?
Ooh, that's a good one.
As we see behind you, we have your player profile up as well. Like you've put that up recently after your game. Anything you wanna ask about the platform?
I think it doesn't apply to me too much, because hopefully I'm in blockchain in a high growth industry. But I have this question: is what would you guys recommend to students? Maybe let's say they're studying accounting, and that's something when I think about it, it can be largely automated. Of course, there's still going to be that human touch and finalizing and perfecting things. That 20% you guys talked about. But what would you guys look for in an industry like that?
It's a really good question. I'll let Mars add a couple of sparks as well. My initial comments would be, first of all, the 20% is super important. And as you pointed out before, thinking of it as soft skills is not enough. It's actually like I said, the top 7 most important skills. So whatever industry you're in, you must train those skills. Leadership, communication, collaboration, not nice to haves anymore. Secondly, I actually think whole new categories and industries are going to grow up. Like the thing that's called accounting, it will no longer be accounting, you know. Yeah. And so you're actually not preparing so much for an industry as you're just preparing for constant learning within an industry in a way. So a lot of what you're talking about is actually learning to learn, learning how to learn and use technology to learn, and not get too hung up on the knowledge. You're as, like, you could probably forget it, and that's okay.
Yeah, I think that's super relevant. I think I was saying that before, the knowledge is becoming less and less relevant. It's knowing how to use it.
And then, I mean, I'm just mirroring what you said, because I would say the third thing is you just, like, everything turns out okay if you have the right networks. That's one thing. So if you have the right networks in that industry, it's funny that you ask about accounting, because isn't that what Sam Kendall, one of our other players, is doing? Yeah. So Sam actually made some of those comments that he's building those networks, and he knows. Actually, he also knows. I think he said that accounting will not be the same. So whether you can pick apart a balance sheet, it's good to know. But just like at one point, it was really good to know how to multiply big numbers quickly, but not anymore.
I love that. No, I totally agree, and I think you use the term AI assisted learning. I think that's key here, especially for students at your of your age that are moving through the university sector and seeing that they're not getting on board with that aspect of learning as quickly as they need to. You've taken that on yourself to do that, and I think that's super important, because no matter what industry you go into, that's one thing you can be certain of, that that AI assisted workspace is going to be prevalent. It already is in 3, 5, 10 years. That's going to be
hugely valuable. I would even say AI accelerated, and actually that's what companies want. So we've been talking about talking to people, startups, specific examples of how they'll now hire, say, 1 or 2 people instead of 5 people. But those 1 or 2 people they want to see can do AI accelerated work,
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be a must-have almost.
Yeah, that's the focus has changed from that initial shock of AI is going to take your job to it's like, no, a person that knows how to use AI properly is going to take your job. But that's what's going to happen. Yeah.
No, cool.
Awesome, Quinn. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, it's been great. Yeah, really enjoyed it. Thanks.